in most of the strategies that we've been learning. I started out by talking about the newer strategies that we're just learning with Dr. Lepat, and I figured it might be a good time to review as well those theories. So I started out with those, and then I led on into the other theories which we'd already learned about last term or last quarter, and basically explaining how the theories and concept maps would be useful in utilizing in these theories. For Bruno's theory, Jerome Bruner believes that the children pass through 3 distinct stages, using motor skills, using images and diagrams, and using symbols, including language and mathematical representation. So in each, really, if you break that down, in each step of the 3 distinct stages in Jerome Bruner's theory, you could potentially see how you can use a concept map in those 3 stages. For instance, using motor skills, motor responses, manipulating things. If you have little Velcro pieces in building concept map activities, we can use our hands in putting things here or putting things there. The images and diagrams, that's pretty much self-explanatory, using pictures even in a concept map, using symbols and mathematical representation. Somewhat. Sometimes people use pictures in concept maps or symbols, or those might be used in figuring out a concept, but not so much in that stage. So moving on into Ausubels. Basically, concept maps can be used in his theory, and a lot of research was done in concept maps and in his theory, using, like, he developed a lot of information about advantages and stuff using the concept maps. So without any more ado, we can conclude that these concept maps can be useful in starting out a lesson or even concluding a lesson, and using the concept maps as a way to question or assess the student. The concept map is a good way to organize the thoughts and have the students focus on an image right at the beginning of the lesson to get their attention. Does anybody have any questions yet? No? Everybody have their tea or coffee this morning?
Monday morning, right?
Monday morning, and the Bermudians, we just had a 4-day weekend public holiday, so I know. Yeah.
Yes, actually, Dominica.
Sure,
Actually,
Samuel, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yes. For what did you explain, do you have some example to show the concept?
Of the concept map?
Yes. Do you have?
Yes, that's coming up in the assignment. We had to show. Okay. Did you want me to skip forward so that you can have it depicted in your mind, or?
No, really. It's like, since it's there, we'll get there. I just want to see exactly the picture of what you just said. But since it's there, we'll get there. I
can go forward. There you have a concept map, and I'll be talking more about that and the good parts of this concept map and the not so good parts that could be changed to make it a more effective concept map. But basically, here's one way of how concept maps can look. So moving on to more theories that would be supported by the utilization of concept maps. Robert Gagne.
Gagne.
Gagne?
Yeah.
Thank you. Robert Gagne Basically, he is looking at learning as a hierarchy, and he says that all learning must proceed from the simple, moving into the more complex. So, a lot of times, concept maps can be constructed to display a form of hierarchy. So, with that said, concept maps can be utilized as a visual tool, an awesome visual tool in Gagne's theory. We can make examples, for instance, an example of a hierarchical map, maybe trying to think the stages of making goat's cheese. For instance, we start out with the raw materials and we feed that to the animal. That might be one thing, and then it goes down in a linear way or goes up in a linear way. It goes into the goats. The goats will eat, and then another step up would be lactating, milking, and then another step up from that, storage, and then another step up from that, we have the pasteurization, and then another step up from that, we add the microbes, the little powder to make the cheese, start to curdle and all this, the rennet, we add those things, and then we have the draining, and then we have so all these processes is like a hierarchy, I guess, and we can use other examples, but that's just the example I came up with just now. Can anybody else give an example? Is Tracy there? No? Would anybody else like to give an example of a hierarchical concept map? All right, well, I'll just go on to the next.
They're not yet. They're not yet ready, Ashley.
I guess they didn't have their Wheaties for breakfast yet. That's okay. I go on. No problem. Paget's theory.
Piaget. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Paget is a good pronunciation, though.
Piaget, French sounding.
Yeah.
Is he French?
I think so.
Oh, okay. So that theory basically is utilizing, as we learned just a couple or a week ago or something like that. Are we in the third week of this quarter? Is this the second week?
No, the third week. The third week.
Oh my God, this is scary. It's going by so fast.
Next week is our final week, I think.
I can't believe it. We need more time. This is too fast. Really, honestly. Like,
yes, it is super fast.
Okay.
Could you hold one moment, please? One moment, Ashley.
Sure.
No, she's sharing. Yeah. I remembered around 2 minutes into it. All right, then good. All right, Ashley, we're back on track.
Okay, great. So basically, Piaget's theories using various ways to analyze the student, but ways that I found that concept maps could be useful in his theory is that we can make connections to past concepts and applications with new ones. So we can do that using a concept map, and I'll go into that further coming up soon, going into how concept maps can make connections from old concepts into new concepts. I'll explain that further coming up. Encourage students to gather and organize information. The concept maps can do that for the students. Provide visual cues to develop cognitive strategies by utilizing appropriate aids. An appropriate aid could be a visualized concept map, a visual tool, so that they can see between the stages of development or ideas or a timeline even. And models and pictures. A concept map is a visual model that can be used. Multiple intelligences, we learned about that last quarter, and basically, without going into too much detail, we can look at the various aspects of the multiple intelligences, visual, kinesthetic, audio. We can look at all these and see that we can use those various styles of learning in utilizing or sharing concept maps with our students. The concept map you can even put music to a concept map if you're trying to figure out a complex concept map. You might like to make a jingle, so therefore you are introducing various learning strategies into the lesson or the theory. And as we all probably can recall, that utilizing music and the arts can increase the learner's abilities or output during testing time. There are studies that have been shown. So moving forward, as I just basically touched on, the concept maps do feed into the various learning styles: audio, visual, reading, tactical, or kinesthetic. So there you have it. Those are the theories that I have discussed. If anybody else would like to take this time to put forward any other theories that they think or feel are permanent to the concept map and that theory, please feel free. Anybody have anything to say about the theories or something else they might like to add? Okay, so moving on to the explanation of how concept map strategies work. Basically, I have been explaining that a little bit, but I'll just go down the list here of how it is used as a visual aid in explaining certain matters. Samuel was asking, how do they look? How can this be? If you go onto the RVLE under the concept map, you will be able to find a nice nifty little folder that has a great little diagram of the way linear, circular, network, and the hub-like concept maps are structured. I explained it briefly, like you're building blocks one on top of the other. That would be linear, or going down. You can go from the top down. A circular one will be going around in a circle using arrows to go in between each concept or each subtopic of a concept. A network kind of branches out, maybe like a spider web, if you will. And then a hub is kind of like a hybrid of a linear and a network, if you will. But you can go out on RVLE and check out the nifty folder. Using a concept map, then expanding on it on the micro level. Oh, I'm sorry. Using a concept. So yeah. So basically, we can start out with one concept and branch out in detail, or just with one or two subtopics and explaining how the subtopics, which is basically the first tier after the main concept that we're explaining, would relate to the concept. So I'll go into more depth as we go on how, we can expand on one concept. You'll be able to see that as I go through my brief lesson of the alimentary canal that I have made concept map for this assignment. Okay, moving on. Concept maps can be used to make a lesson plan transparent, very clear on the transgression or the progression of a lesson. So you can write out your goals, you can write out your content, you can write out your, what's the other thing that we have to write? The not the goals, we have the I can't remember at the moment.
Your
But you write everything
objectives?
out.
You mean
Yes,
your
thank you.
objectives?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you. The objectives. So you write all that out, and then you can have a lesson plan, a concept mapped, where you're kind of using that to make sure that you cover all of the content. So that might be a useful tool in sharing with the children, with sharing with the students. Or like I said, you might be able to use that concept map as a way to formulate a hierarchy, things that you started out with, learning maybe years ago, and then show the students how that is relative to the information that we are going to be learning today and moving forward. So also the concept maps, the lines in between each, well, you have the main concept and then the subtopics that come off of the one main one, or moving forward into new concepts. The cross-link, those are the lines between the two topics there. And sometimes those lines can have arrows. Sometimes you can use words to connect the two topics, and those are called propositions. When you have two concepts and a few words in between those two concepts connecting the two ideas, those are visualized propositions. So basically, a concept map is a combination, a sum of the utilization of scientific knowledge, in our case, scientific knowledge, literacy, a visual tool, reflections, and thought. All of that, because we have to utilize all those things in order to create a concept map. The concept maps are wonderful for hands-on learning, making a meaningful learning tool or template to organize the information, especially for young students. Also, although it may not be utilized very frequently or it's not very popular assessment tool, they are looking at the efficiency of the concept map as an assessment tool, as we have to be able to understand the relationships between concepts or a concept and their subtopics, and be able to explain using the proposition in between those two to be able to successfully complete a concept map. So we're not really using that too much right now as an assessment tool, but moving forward perhaps. So this is my little lesson that I designed for explaining the elementary canal to my students. I made a little key here for understanding. The main idea is here in this circular object in purple outline. It's called the elementary canal. Basically, when you're designing a concept map, you want to stay away from using too many words in a square, or a rectangle in a topic. This is a large topic. I have 3 large topics that I wanted to cover in my lesson. and each large topic should have something like 2 or more subtopics. And then after those subtopics are more extended topics. For instance, the alimentary canal, also known as the gastrointestinal tract. I had never heard of the alimentary canal in all my training. This was I know the gastrointestinal tract, or the digestion system. So alimentary canal, I was like, oh wow, okay, new one. So basically we have the substructures of the alimentary canal, starting with the mouth, esophagus, the oral cavity, and here you can see we have an extended topic. From the oral cavity, we have the tongue and the teeth. The tongue and the teeth are what the oral cavity consists of. You can see that I have connected the teeth and the tongue into the mechanical digestion. Yes, mechanical digestion is then gone off into their extended topics, kind of explaining what mechanical digestion is, chewing, grinding, etc., etc. I hope you all can see. So going on to the substructures of the alimentary canal, we have the stomach, we have the small intestine with its extended topics, we have the duodenum and the ileum, large intestine, colon and rectum, and the anus. Then I went on to explain the organs and glands that are associated with the alimentary canal. So you get the picture here. We're just supposed to give a brief on how we can use these visual tools in the classroom. So I could have either given this as an example to my students, or perhaps just use it for myself to make sure that I am covering all of the concepts that need to be facilitated for the curriculum. But like I said, perhaps maybe some arrows could have been implemented into this to make it better. And also this sentence here, no bueno, too long, not good. So there are some improvements that could have been made to this to make it a better concept map. Does anybody have any questions for Teacher Ashley?
Yes. Samuel?
Okay.
Samuel?
Yes, Sam.
Yes. Yes. You spoke about the linear circular network hub way of presenting the concept map. So my question is there any form of hierarchy displacement in the concept map you just showed us a while ago? Is there any hierarchy order of display of information? And can hierarchy be displayed in linear circular network or hub formats? Is it possible?
That would be more of a network map. I'm just trying to look for you now for the you want to see the pictures of the other concept maps that we can use. Here we are. Can you see my screen still? Sam? Samuel? Anybody?
Yes, I'm listening.
Can you see my screen?
Not very clearly, but we can see the outline. You might have to walk us through it because it's not as clear. We can see the headings to some extent, linear, circular, tree, hub network, but you might have to just, we can't really make out what's in it, right?
Okay, thank you. Samuel, the top left box, that would be a linear concept map. The one just below that would be a circular concept map that's going around in a circle. the one that I had today looks like a bit of a hub, which is going up into the second column, the top. It looks like it could be a hub, perhaps, or even a network, which is the bottom on the right column. Network would be a bottom right column. So that's the one, probably the network is the one that I had up on the example today. But this document here can be found in the RVLE under concept maps. So you can look at it more clearly, not through sharing of the screen. Did you have a different question, Samuel? Another question? Did that answer your question?
Yes, but I'm trying to connect the hierarchy way of displacing information to the different formats you just showed us.
Sure. Do you see the linear concept map here on the column to the left, the top? You see, I can put a hierarchy basically from simple things up into more complex things, or from complex to simple things. So maybe I can say I start out up the top with H2O, and then through a process of electrolysis, I don't know, I'm just making this up as I'm going. Through electrolysis, I might use the arrow and say electrolysis is a process, and then we go down and that breaks into what is given off? Heat, gas. You know what I mean? So that's like you're starting out with one thing and you're breaking it down. Hierarchy. If you understand a hierarchy, what hierarchy means, it's like a brigade in the army. You have a colonel, you have sergeant, you have privates. So you start out at the top with the colonel, right? I don't know the official breakdown. The colonel, the sergeant, the color sergeant. You know, all of these. It's like a hierarchy. You start with the, you know, in the kitchen you have the head chef, then you have the sous chef. The sous chef reports to the head chef. Then under the sous chef, that sous chef has demi chefs, and under those demi chefs you have the line chefs, and under those line chefs you have the commis, which is basically the student chef. So that would be breaking down the hierarchy of a kitchen. Are you getting the idea, and how you can relate hierarchies and using the hierarchy of understanding into a visual aid?
Yes,
Samuel?
yes.
Does that clear it up for you?
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if I may interject regarding the hierarchy, it really has to do with how you organize the concept map. It's your organization, because I can see how Samuel it might be hard to visualize this hierarchy if you seem to be just expanding on concepts. But it just depends on how you build it. You really have to think through it logically first and sequentially. That's so important, because I don't know if you mentioned it, Ashley, but concept maps can also be confusing to students. They might not be aware. You'd have to, just like what you did. I noticed you had this key and you illustrated what was the main concept. And for some teachers, what they'll do is that they'll number just until students get a feel of concept maps. So don't want to be talking too much. I want the other I think I just muted myself, right? I think get other students here to bring in their 2 bits, as Ava would say. But just to make an observation that you yourself as a teacher have to be very organized in your thoughts and build the concept maps to see what it would look like, and then hence to see how students would interpret or even build concept maps of their own. Just wanted to put that in there. I know Ava wanted to say something, and others, so let me keep quiet now and mute myself.
Thank you.
Yes, I I just wanted to ask actually, at what stage, what group of students would you recommend that concept map to? Because it seems very confusing, as you said, and maybe university level or something. I'm not sure because it's all over the place. It's up, it's down. And I'm thinking of our students. It's very, you really have to know the material before you can actually do that, or maybe after.
Yes.
I'm not. I didn't
as
particularly
the
think it for.
Sorry.
I think it's
as a teacher
complex. It's a bit complex for students.
It can be complex, but as long as the teacher, the educator, has a clear understanding of how to construct a concept map, as well as the theory itself or the concept being expanded on, then concept maps have been proven to be very useful. They've done studies in Cornell University. You know, some concept maps can be utilized simple. They can be simple, like the ones just before when I was talking to Samuel. Those ones here, this looks like maybe a 10-year-old or 7-year-old's handwriting. When you look in the RVLE, you'll see that it says here concept map, and it says woods contain matter, something else. I'm not sure what this lesson was talking about, but it's basically utilizing something that they were learning in a topic for a younger age students. You can tell by the handwriting, the script that they use. So I would say that we can use that anywhere from pre-occupational straight through to tertiary. Yes. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be simplified, and it can be made fun with the utilization. We can use artwork. We can use color shading. We can use stars, triangles, horseshoes, clovers, and balloons. So we can use.
Yes, actually, I got that. I wasn't in any way questioning the concept map itself. I was just looking at the one that you presented. I'm just saying that one you have to take in consideration the student's level, because to me, just my opinion, it looks confusing, and you're trying to get in too many things into that concept map. So I'm just thinking, I'm not questioning. I know people. I know we can play with it. I know we can color it and stuff, but just the one that you presented. Because even the one with the water, it looks to me, the linear one, it looks like a sentence. Water contains, and I don't think you actually, it's like they make the students probably making up a sentence based on what is given. Is that a concept? Water is liquid or whatever. I really cannot see. It's like
sometimes there are words. Sometimes there are words used in between topic, and that's called the proposition.
It's not used in the thing itself. It's used in the arrow. But that one have like wood, and then you probably would put contain by the arrow, and then you put something else inside of it. But it's not used in the block. But I know it's used outside, and then you show an angle, and you put a word in to connect it.
Right. Well, if I may interject, right, I suspect, because I know Ashley had mentioned that the teacher builds the concept maps. They can give it to the students and teach the concepts from the concept maps, as well as Ashley also put out a very good idea there that concept maps can also help the teachers to organize their own content and how they intend to deliver. But I suspect that these examples, as much as they might not have, oh, I forget, it's not my screen. I'm trying to move it up. As much as it didn't say who created these, but we can see that there were students' creations, which is something that I want to really focus on.
At the bottom.
Right.
Concept map by middle school children. Yeah.
Okay.
I can see.
Right. Yes. Middle school, and I suspect it's a way to get them to kind of understand, make their own concept maps. Really very good. And yes, it does look like a sentence, and I think that's the way in which they teach concept maps at the beginning, because essentially you should be able to start from that main concept, that like what Ashley had with the alimentary canal. You should be able to move from that main concept and literally create a sentence or even a paragraph going along any one of those lines in any direction. So if it says alimentary canal, and then you have, I noticed actually that your example in particular, however, didn't have the little connectors, those linking words. The one that you created, it didn't say like consists of or divided into. It didn't have those connecting words. It just went straight from concept to concept to concept. But those linking words are very important. It will guide, and maybe that's why Ava is saying that she isn't quite sure at what level this particular concept map would be used, if it's a 15-year-olds, or because to just dive into this, you would have to give a lot of guidance to this concept map, and that's fine. Sometimes we need to throw our students into the deep end and then see what they can make of it, and then maybe we ask them to put in the connectors or the linking words, because we kind of sometimes give students a whole lot on a platter, and sometimes we need to get them to be thinking about the concept map, or the idea behind the concept map is to help them to link, to make those connections. And that's how we build the hierarchy, the construction of their cognitive thoughts on a concept. So in terms of the ones that were on Orvally, as I said, they look like students' work, middle school, which is great, because that's a wonderful way to get the students to express what do they understand about this concept. Ashley had mentioned that, is it Osabel, in his theory about advanced organizers, using something either at the end or at the beginning. A concept map would be a good way to introduce a topic, find out what do the students know after you have taught them what is a concept map. I think it's very important that for any strategy that you're doing, you teach the students the strategy itself. What does it do? How does it work? So that when it comes upon them, when it's time to really create one, they know what they're doing. So you'd have introduced this before, show them how to build one, a simple one, whether it be linear, circular, etc., and then now you're starting a topic. And you say, using the concept map that we learned about, tell me what you know about the alimentary canal. And they would build something. And from it, keep that as your as they would say, pre-test, or determining prerequisite knowledge. As you go through the content with them, have them at the end probably build another concept map, and you have them compare what they thought of initially to what they thought of at the end. And it doesn't have to be the alimentary canal, it could be just digestion or one component of it, so it's not so complex, so many things in at the same time. Ava, I don't know if I'm addressing to some extent your concerns about how this concept map, the one on the alimentary canal, how it could be used, at what level it could be used, and in comparison to what we had seen on those posted on Orvally.
Yes, I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Ashley, did I represent you well?
Thank you for your support. Jason, sorry, I just was presenting. I didn't see your text message come through until just now. I guess you're all straight. You got everything you needed?
Yeah, thanks. No
sorry about that.
That's fine.
Ava, you were saying something. Your mic was off, but you were talking. I wasn't sure. All right, it's now off.
Yes, I was just referring to that, but it wasn't the only to be a lawyer. I just
No.
A lot of concepts. I'm thinking about my students, and it's a lot to see, because there's no. If you look at that one, if you look at the mouth, there's no connection with the mouth and the teeth. There's no connection to what it just goes on to mechanical digestion.
Right.
And then you have no connection to break up and these kind of things. So just maybe at an advanced level, that's what I was looking at, the age of the students and the level of understanding.
Yes, maybe I didn't explain the large topics, the transition between a large topic and this subtopic.
Actually, we got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Your mic is muted, Ava.
I was just looking at the map itself. I understand it's quite clear, but it's just the connection I was looking at. That's fine. I'm saying maybe at another level, persons would have understood that you know. But if you do the connection between the mouth, it has teeth, then you go these things. It's just the way it's thing. And I guess it's somebody maybe at a university level or something, it looks like, because we have concept like peristalsis, you have to understand upward movement, downward movement. There's a lot of, you know, the concepts are very large, enzymes, you have to go in salivary gland and this kind of thing. But I'm just thinking that at our level, secondary level, might be a bit difficult for the student to understand these, because they will have overall knowledge of all of these chemical digestion.
Oh, yes. Yes,
so
this
maybe
wouldn't
not
be
for secondary level.
This wouldn't be the only tool that we would be using in the classroom. We would have to explain all of these other things. This is just a treat, like this is just a visualization of the whole. This lesson may have been taught over 2 lessons, actually.
I can see
you know
that, yeah. I can
so peristalsis would be maybe a key word, and that keyword peristalsis would be in a homework assignment, and they have to say, you know, peristalsis is the movement, the mechanical digestion down the blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So it looks complex, but you know, it's just a visual tool for them, maybe to help them memorize this all for a test.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
In fact, oh, sorry. Right. I was just going to ask, for everyone having seen this, I mean, maybe you have seen these concept maps in books, textbooks, and maybe just never pay them any mind. You ignore them. Can you see maybe for your own class, because Ava is actually thinking about her learners and to what extent it could be used. Certainly, we want to keep concepts kind of simple, building until they're accustomed to it, until they're comfortable with it. But for other persons now, Linton perhaps, or Tracy, or anybody else, Vanessa, do you think that this is something that you would be comfortable in how could you use concept maps in your own in the classroom for yourselves? I mean, that's the whole idea here. We're going through different strategies, different methodologies that we need to be familiar with and using them in our classrooms. Samuel, anybody at all, how would you use it? Do you see how this could be useful for your students, and in what way would you use it?
Yes, Samuel, Dominica.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I think it's very good, because even myself, I remember more concept map than something in words. So this will really help for them to see from the main idea to the large topic that they need to know and they should always remember, to the subtopic that they need to know and they must remember. So it will help them visually to see what the whole topic is all about. And from there, once they know what the large topic is, then they should be able to explain what it is from there to the subtopic. And to me, it's like it's an easier way of remembering what the objectives that will be taught in the topic. So once they remember the concept maps, then the whole topic is like, wow, they know everything about the whole topic. So it's something that I love myself. Even I didn't know it was called concept maps. Most time in my class, yeah, when I was in school, I always try to write whatever the lecturer have taught from the main idea that I must remember to the subtopic, and in that way I remember more than writing in words.
Right.
So I will try to use more of that in my class, and to me, like they will really appreciate it, because it's an easy way of remembering everything that they need to know about a topic.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Samuel. And as I suspected that we are familiar with many of these things, but just that sometimes we never really got that educational development name assigned to it. But you know, I'm pretty sure that we're familiar with lots of these stuff already. Anybody else?
Yes, I like concept map. I use them from time to time. It's very, very precise, concise. The children are actually learning that way. But what I do sometimes is like, if I'm doing simple topic in the form tools like agriculture, I will just maybe put a circle and some arrows and stuff based on the number of students. For example, if there are 7 of them, I will put 7 arrows. So I will put a circle, put agriculture, and then ask them to come up and put a word or a phrase or something, what they think it is. And then from then, I'll ask the class to, okay, the person said plants, how is that related to agriculture? Everybody will have a chance to have the idea and then it in a sentence. Also, sometimes if I'm doing the importance of agriculture, I will draw a tree, put the importance of agriculture as the stem or trunk, and then have the leaves, and they'll come in and use a leaf of themselves, and they'll put something in the leaf, and then we'll discuss it. So that way they'll know, okay, I have 7 reasons why. How many leaves are there? I have to give 7 reasons, and even in the test, I will do that for them. In terms of digestion, it also works well with the digestion process. I will say, okay, we're going to do digestion, and that consists of, let's say, 10 steps. So the first thing you do in an exam, you put 10 circles or 10 blocks or whatever, and you know. Whatever you remember, you must see the link between the two. You remember, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, and the last step. You can start anyway. Start at the beginning, the mouth, then end with the anus, and then you see it come as a flow chart. So it has been very useful for me in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing that Ava just brought out that might be useful to Samuel. I don't know if it's a hierarchy, but maybe a hierarchy. Yes, maybe a hierarchy of transition from food into digested macronutrients. We can use the substructures as a hierarchy. You start from the mouth, go through to the esophagus, or not the esophagus, but you go through the oral cavity. You know what I mean? That could be like a hierarchy going from the mouth to the oral cavity, to the esophagus, to the stomach, to the intestines, and then out through the anus.
Right. Yes.
Thank you, Ava.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other takers before we thank Teacher Ashley and we move on to our next teacher presenter? She's taking a bow. Well done.
I actually use them when I'm teaching adults as a brainstorming activity to see what they already know, because I'm teaching them something that most of them have already done before, but they have to recertify every 2 years. So it saves a lot of time if I can establish what they already know, and then I don't have to teach grandma to suck eggs kind of deal. I can just teach them the things that they didn't quite have a good grasp on.
Right.
Thank you.
Good,
yes.
good one. All right. So thank you very much, Teacher Ashley. I could not have done it any better. I love when student teachers present, it gives me a break, and then I realize, hey, these are the upcoming teachers. Hey. All right. So, Jason, I see number 2 beside your name. I really don't know where these numbers came from, to be honest. But anyway, are you ready?
Sure. I don't have anything to show, but I'm just gonna make a brief presentation. But my topic was analogies and metaphors, using those in facilitating conceptual change in students. And so basically the theoretical framework that supports using analogies, I believe, is the main one is constructivism. And basically constructivism, the principle is that students can construct or assign their own meaning to concepts that they learn by especially linking them to their prior knowledge or past experience. And that to me is also connected to Novak's theory of education, which is related to meaningful learning. It's basically, to me, very similar to constructivism, but I'll just read it. It says, meaningful learning underlies the constructive integration of thinking, feeling, and acting, leading to empowerment for commitment and responsibility. But, so yeah, to me, those are the main theories that I could think of. And constructivism, I guess, kind of originated with Piaget, with his view of equilibrations, how we learn things through accommodation and assimilation, which is basically adding new concepts to your schema or your set of knowledge that you already have, and incorporating the new knowledge into that so that you can actually learn it. So how does that support the strategy? Well, analogy basically, I guess I'm on number 2 as well, but okay, how the analogy works is basically you take a familiar concept, a concept that's familiar to the students, and then you you compare it and relate it to a concept that is unfamiliar to the students. And so the idea is that you're building on their prior knowledge to help them connect and create meaning with a new concept. So that's how it relates to constructivism. And the familiar concept is called the analog, and the unfamiliar concept is called the
target.
Target, yes, target concept. Thank you. And so, and in the article that we have on Orville, I can't remember everything in detail, but it actually shows how analogies can be useful in the 5E model. So two of the things I can remember are in engagement. It can be used in the engagement phase by helping students to be interested in learning a new topic, because the teacher can use the analogy to show how that new topic is connected to something they already know. So it can help motivate students to have interest in the topic. And then also in the exploration phase, it can be used in that it's important when you teach the students using an analogy, it's important for them to understand that it's not a perfect comparison. The new concept and the analogy that's being used, the analogy is limited to in certain ways to describing that concept fully. So if you point, or if you ask the students to point out how the analogy is helpful and also how that analogy is lacking in some areas, then it can help them to explore the concept at a deeper level and to think critically about the analogy itself and actually have a better understanding of how the analogy can be useful. And then, yeah, so it shows how analogy can be used in the other stages as well of extending and evaluating, and the other, I'm missing one, can't remember what it is, but yeah, so that's that. And then my example, I guess I thought of two examples just in case one might not be that good, but I was thinking of, like, in environmental science, we probably all know about global warming, and a part of global warming is understanding the greenhouse effect. And so the greenhouse effect is kind of like an analogy. It's using the concept of a greenhouse to explain how the atmosphere and the atmosphere plays a role in maintaining the Earth's temperature through the heat and the light from the sun and things like that. So that could be helpful if students have an idea of what a greenhouse is, or you could explain to them what a greenhouse is, and it might help them to understand it. But I don't know if many students would have an understanding of what a greenhouse is. But so I thought of another possibility in teaching something like carrying capacity. Maybe you could use a fish bowl or something like that to show that as you increase the amount of fish in the fish bowl, it puts more stress on the fish, and it also can damage the environment through their waste, and there's more competition for resources, like they're going to be competing for food and things like that. So that environment in the fish bowl can only support a specific number of fish. Eventually it's going to damage the environment, like I said, and kill the fish. So that could be related to the concept of carrying capacity in a sense. And I guess that's it for me in a nutshell, unless anybody has any questions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jason. Any questions before I jump in? Comments? Has anyone used analogies, metaphors in their teaching? What was that like?
Did Jason give any examples of analogies? Like, in how they can be used in teaching science?
Yeah, I just gave two.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally blanked. My bad.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Repeat yourself, Jason. She didn't get it. Just
yes.
Again,
Does that mean my example is bad?
No, I think it was just your voice is so gentle. Your voice is so gentle. Like, I was just like, la 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 la.
So no questions, I guess?
Go ahead, Jason. Sorry, I muted my mic. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, I was just saying, did anybody have any questions?
Oh, okay. So, repeating the analogy, Jason, teacher Jason.
Oh, you want me to repeat? Yeah, no problem. Okay. The first one I mentioned was relating to teaching about global warming. And I was saying a term and a concept that is a part of global warming is the greenhouse effect. And that in itself, to me, is an analogy because it's comparing the way that the Earth maintains a temperature through the atmosphere and the sun, the interaction of the sunlight and infrared radiation and stuff like that. And the atmosphere, like carbon dioxide actually in the atmosphere, trapping the heat around the Earth, that is analogous to the way a greenhouse works. But I was saying that maybe a greenhouse could be a foreign concept to students, so it might not actually help. So I was saying another, you could overcome that by showing them pictures of a greenhouse and maybe showing a video about it or something like that. But then I was thinking of another analogy for a concept like carrying capacity, which I had talked about previously in our last lesson. But carrying capacity basically is like the amount of the population of a specific species that can be sustained by an environment without damaging the species or the environment. And so I was saying that could be analogous to a fish bowl, and you could show like how if you increase the amount of fish in a fish bowl, it's going to eventually cause damage to the environment in the bowl through the waste produced by the fish as well as other things. And then it's also going to harm the fish because there's going to be more competition for resources. They'll use up the oxygen in the water. If it's not oxygenated and stuff, they'll die, and there will be competition for food and things like that. So you can show that in a way to say, okay, well, as you increase the population of fish in this bowl, eventually it's going to damage them in the environment. Those are the examples I gave.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Heard that now, Ashley?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So comments. Don't leave Jason hanging out there, guys. Has anyone used this? All right.
That's a very good analogy, I thought. And it also, I think we can also use that concept not only in science, Jason, but in SS and these kind of things, other related subjects, to see maybe population growth. For example, we can look at if we continue to make babies, would we be able to sustain and stuff? Look at China, compare China and other countries where you have overpopulation, underpopulation, and make an analogy between these things. So I think it's a very good presentation. You can really make analogies if you really think about it in other areas besides science.
Definitely, analogies can be used in other areas other than science, for sure, yeah.
Okay. Linton, have you ever used analogies in your teaching? And how did it go?
Okay, well, off and on, well, yes. Well, I guess I used to, but to be honest, I was not aware that's what I was doing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, using it in the 5E model, yes, it is appropriate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, especially for engaging and getting the students, because one of the precepts, for want of a better word, of using an analogy, as Jason said, is to use something familiar, and that part is a tricky part in trying to get something that, for the most part, all of your students have had some experience with, something that's out there. It's something that's in their schema already, and then you're going to use it to make that comparison. And that part is always, it's good to use more than one example or several examples, as Jason did. In the event that you don't hit the nail on the head for some of the students, at least using more examples, you run a greater chance that someone will connect with the examples that you're providing. I'm not quite sure if Jason brought it up, but they did caution in one of the readings that is on Orwelli regarding analogies and metaphors, that you have to be careful at what level students you're going to be using analogies for. I think they recommended that you choose students who are at the concrete operational phase, which is really upper school level, because for younger students, the analogies will become is the analog and target. The analog is that which is familiar to the students, the example that you're using, and that which you're relating it to, the target, is a scientific concept that you want them to kind of relate to. But for younger students, sometimes the example you give to create the analogy, that's all they remember. They can't seem to link it to the scientific concept. And I'm sure that we have had this experience in the classroom. We give an example of something, we're making a comparison, and in the exam or in the test, you see them writing about, you know, some little kid going uphill. It is like when I used to teach about concentration gradient and going against the gradient for active transport. And I like to draw my little bicycle, try to draw a bicycle going uphill, and I'm trying to get them to imagine going uphill, because most kids ride bicycles, and going uphill, what would it require for that child to go uphill? And they tell me lots of energy, and you know, it's easier going downhill and whatever. I get that story back when I'm asking what is active transport. Nothing at all to do with ATP and energy and all of that stuff. So you have to be careful how you use your analogy. Make sure you emphasize that it's just for comparison, okay? It's just to get them to get an understanding. But I know that there was a caution about ensuring that you use it at the level of students where they can, you know, separate the, the analog from the target, so to speak. But there's something that I never knew before that I appreciated in Jason's presentation and in the readings. It said, you know that the target and the analog will not be synchronous on all points. The similarity will end at some point. There will be differences. And they say, ensure that you point out to the students the difference where your analog fails to be, you know, your target, so to speak. So in making the comparisons, don't just simply use an example and say, it's like when, you know, cells, parenchyma cells in plants. If you're teaching these cells that they're or amoeba, the structure of the amoeba, that it's shapeless, it looks like a dumpling. Don't just leave it like that. You know, make sure you say it looks like a dumpling in terms of, but it's not a dumpling in terms of. And I want to just share, I think I'm just going to pick something from one of the readings that Jason had. It's on Orwelli, but here it is. I think they had an analog or a comparison between the camera and the eye, which I've always not got. I can never understand this one myself. Oops. What? Really don't have time for that. Let's see if I can get this. All right. Can you see the screen? I want to make it as big as possible so we can see. All right, so here it says basic analog, and we are comparing it with the target. So the camera is like the eye. They're making the comparisons, and they're saying in what ways it's like. But what I liked about it, which I've never really done, was to say the ways in which it's not alike. So the camera is like the eye in terms of all of those things, but the camera is not like the eye in terms of limited to bright light, permanent. And I think that's important to highlight to our students when we're building analogies and telling stories and using metaphors, because that would help them to say, okay, it's really not the concept. That's not the main thing. I think that's important to bring out. I don't know what you all think about that one, that point.
Yeah, I thought that was a good point. Especially in terms of the way you can use that to accomplish other phases of the learning cycle, the 5E learning cycle. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, because remember, all of these teaching strategies, the aim is conceptual change or conceptual development. So even with the concept map, a good twist on a concept map is to ask them to correct a concept map. It could be at the end, where you have already, as an assessment tool, as Ashley said, that it's being used now. People are looking more at it as an assessment tool. So even at the end of your intervention, of your lesson, you could create a concept map where the concepts are wrong, or they're not in that hierarchy, and you ask them to make this concept map more accurate, or something like that. I mean, those are ways in which I find myself, I'm so concerned about the truth, the scientific truth, that I'm not facilitating the students thinking outside of that. What if it were this way? How would they engage the concept if it were not so? And I think analogies really help them to think. And I think you had said it, Jason, that it's a tool that's great for critical thinking, because they will have to think, in what ways are they similar, in what ways are they different, and how can I, explain this concept based on that analogy that has been posed. So it's a very good tool. All right, thank you, teacher Jason. 2 thumbs up. All right. All right. All right. So we have a choice here now. We have 2 more presentations to go. Either we take out one of those 15-minute breaks. I don't know if you all had your coffee as yet, as Ashley was asking earlier. 15 minutes, we'll come back at 10:30 and we continue. That's okay? Or 2 earlier break?
We can get it over with, I guess.
Okay, so we're pushing Ava dry. Didn't get that one. What did you say, Ava?
I said I'm good, I'm not next.
Oh. I see. Yes, you are next. Okay. You are next. You are?
Really?
Well, let's see now. I have concept cartoons and questioning and discussion for today. I don't know in what order. You never knew that?
I'm ready to go for not.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Seems as if we want to push on. All right. So, Ava, you are next.
Okay, this is.
No problem. Let me look for some things too in the meantime so I can get them up.
So are we on break, or is Ava going to go first?
Let's get a class consensus. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? All in favor of a break? Say aye.
Aye.
Follow the leader, follow the leader. You know that song?
No.
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, after Ava's presentation.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Can you see the screen, everyone? Hello?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. My presentation today is based on question and discussion. I'm trying to get the technology right. Okay. The theory that they fell into that, I think that when I looked at it, question and discussion fell into the constructivism. It also went into inquiry and something to do with Bloom's taxonomy. I know it's not a theory, but it fell within that. And I'm doing it together because even though question and discussion might seem different, it's from your questioning that you generate your discussion. So I thought I'll put them like a good old couple together. They cannot do without each other, so we can do it together as a married couple. This one. So we have, the first point that I wanted to make was that good question is the key to productive discussion. So you must start off with a good questioning, and from there you will have to proceed to good discussion. it says that this technique can be challenging at times because you have to think of your question, you have to plan before you go into the classroom. You can't just try and say, okay, let me think of something that I'm going to ask my students. Really a lot of planning that goes into it, but it also can be most rewarding because you get a lot of your content covered that way. And most of the information that you want to impart on the students, you can get it through discussion, etc. Now, why is it that we want to do this type of, use this in our classroom? The first thing we want to is to allow the teacher to stimulate critical thinking in her students. And I did put her, especially. You want to start with stimulation, so you want to go, why? Why is it? What's the reason for that? The students must be able to think critically. First thing you want them to be able to do. So they start off with something, and then you want to begin the thought process. You want also to be able to do self-critique. You want to foster diverse view in your classroom, and you also would like to have your students make or take informed actions. Why we might get into, if you look at this, we can get in our knowledge, we can get our motor skills, and we can also get our affective domain when we start with these kind of things, because it says you take diverse views, you learn to appreciate other person's views, and you take informed decisions. So from whatever it is you're going to be discussing, you can now say, okay, I know that is so, I can move on to something else, I can take actions, I can do something with the knowledge that I've gained during that discussion phase. How should teacher plan and prepare for this? You want, as I said before, start with a goal. I'm going to teach that lesson. What is the goal of that lesson? Why are you yawning, Miss? Am I boring you already?
Oops, not at all. I've been yawning from yesterday, trust me.
So no coffee for you.
No, can't wait to get some.
You start with a goal, you look at your plan for your lesson. You want to, what is the children going to do? Are they going to look at concept to be mastering our concept? Are they going to look at critical skills? So you want to know what is it I'm going to achieve through having discussion and questioning my students. Also, as a teacher, you want to avoid leading questions. Anybody know what leading question is? Samuel?
Yeah.
Could you tell us?
Leading question is question that you put forward before your topic to find out what they know, and from there you can take it from there.
Okay. What I gather leading question is that it just have you direct them straight to the answer. When you ask this kind of question, you know the answer. But we can discuss that a little bit. Okay. Then if you're going to ask a yes or no question, you want to follow it up with an additional question. You don't want to just say, okay, yes or no. You want to know what they think of something. Why is it they answered yes? Why is it they answered no? So that way you're able to assess how they arrive at that answer. Again, you don't want to ask more than one question at a time, and sometimes I'm guilty of that.
Me too.
You know, you don't get it. You didn't answer the question. You didn't think about it. And I think when I did my micro teaching, we were able to identify one of my weaknesses. That I asked maybe too many questions sometimes, but I'll work on that. Okay. Then you also want to ask different types of questions. You have your high and low order questions. You also have questions that are convergent and divergent questions, or we call them open and closed-ended questions. So you want to have, because you want to test, you don't, as we said before, you don't want to have only recall questions. You want to look at, again, at Bloom's taxonomy and ask, and as we did as homework, you want to have your knowledge, your analysis, your synthesis, evaluation questions. You'll know exactly where the children are and the way they think. How it works best? Of course, sometimes you just, I do it sometimes in the class. I just show the question and ask anybody, whoever raise their hand or something like that, they'll answer the question. But in terms of best practices, they said you want to put them in pairs or small group, assign them a task or question, what you must also be aware of, that you want the task to be clearly defined. Sometimes you give instruction to students and they like, what is it she's required? They're not sure. And I think that happened to us in a class, that I wasn't sure what I needed to do. I know the homework, but I wasn't sure, should I do X, should I load it up, should I don't do that? So I know as an adult, as a learner, sometimes I'm confused with the instructions that I get. So you want to have your task, clearly defined, and maybe ask them, what is it you need to do? You know, and then when they tell you, you can move on from there. One way you can do is also look at each member, assign a task to them, each person. And sometimes when you have too large a group, you might miss somebody might just be there piggy banking on somebody else and just they doing nothing. So you want to make sure that you assign each person a task. Now for that, I think that you really have to know your class, know your students, you know what to give who, etc. Or if you have them do it themselves, you know, as a way of having some kind of say in how they learn, what they do, you can try that, but each person must have a task, as I said before. A strategy that the teachers can use is to have the person that is not so outgoing, not very talkative, not very open, have them to do the last task, which is reporting. The class will help them to be a bit more confident, you know, be more open and more sociable, etc. I know we have students in the class that don't talk sometimes. You have to really speak to them directly for them to answer. And when it has happened to me, when you get the child's idea and what they say, you know, they're thinking, they're there with you, but it's just that's their personality. So you want to get them, have the last person, the person is very quiet, present the findings. And at the end of that, our lesson, we want to evaluate. As in all lessons, we want to have the teacher do the evaluation and also the student. So you can ask them questions. What did they learn from that lesson? What is it they like about the lesson? What is it they didn't like about the lesson? And then you as a facilitator will now see how it works and maybe look at ways to improve it. Should I try it more often? What should I do? Should I do it in the next class? Is that age too young? Are they there in terms of development to have a good discussion and these kind of things you can analyze now? Do you want to try that again or kick it through the window? Some of the reasons why, as I mentioned, or maybe came out, why discussion and questioning fail is that we have unrealistic expectations of the lesson or of our students. We really cannot just go with any question, even though Mr. Burnett said that children at any stage can learn anything. You know, we must consider the age, the cognitive development, other factors, the setting, maybe the weather, other things we have to consider before we go into that. So, and don't be too hard on the students. If they're not there, they're just not there. Even though you think that they're supposed to know that, maybe they just don't. So we just move on from there. And unprepared students, we talk about if you have, for example, if you do homework that lead up to a new topic, students did not do their homework, no research, etc. That can also cause discussion and questioning to fail, because what are we going to discuss? You don't know what we're talking about, you have no idea, no homework. So that's one of the reasons why that can fail. Also, in terms of you need to set rules, respect for others' views, social grace, that students will learn in our science lesson, respect for others' person's view. And yes, I would like to say that we can encourage critique. We can, ask other students, what do you think of that? And they can share their views respectfully. But as much as possible, we should try not to make the person feel bad and take their feelings into consideration, healthy critique. And also students, teachers should model discussion. How is it done? We cannot go into a class the first day and say, today we're going to discuss X, Y, and Z and question and stuff, and the students have no idea of what we're talking about. Especially if they were not the traditional learning styles where they just accustomed to the teacher doing all the talking and say yes, no, that, yes and no, whatever. We want to have them, they might say, is that teacher crazy? What is she talking about? So we want to have them, show them how we go about discussing, model Then maybe if you have another colleague, you can probably have maybe team teaching or something, have somebody come in to show them, to ask a question, the person to respond to it. But there are different ways of doing discussion and questioning. You can have students themselves, as I said, in peer group, they can form a circle. You can have ideas where I saw that you can have one person asking a question, the other person giving the answer, then you go to a next group. So there are different strategies that we can use to get that discussion and questioning on the ball. Oh, any questions, sorry? Not yet? Okay. I couldn't get this one too clearly, but we talked about looking at
why don't you put it on the presentation slideshow? It's not on
is,
slide. It is on slide. No, that doesn't look like the slideshow screen. That looks like in the editing mode. I don't know.
Excuse my technology.
You're doing well. If you click on slideshow and then go and right, and then choose from current slide. It's second from left, right. You could make it just a little bit bigger for us. Nothing happened? Okay.
Yes.
Somewhat.
Okay. So when can we ask questions? From what I've read, that we can ask questions at any time of our lesson. It depends on the teacher choices. We can start at the introduction, development stage, culminating stage, and that's the best thing I think we should do at each point along the gradient. We should ask to see, did they get it? Are they building on the knowledge that we have given them? Are they synthesizing? Are they analyzing? What is it they're doing? So we get a feel of, should we continue along, should we continue along that path, or should we stop and go back from where we started? For example, if you're looking at step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we might have missed a step and say, okay, they got it, but we have to go back now to see if the students are really getting it, and we can only know that if we question and have a discussion about what is it we're teaching. Okay, so before we set up our instruction, what is it we want to do? We want them to motivate. Thank you for that slide information, by the way. Motivate, cover, figure outcome, provoke the thoughts, how they're thinking, assess, of course, at the beginning of the lesson, what prior knowledge you might have had, etc., etc. During the development stage, you want to check for knowledge, application, synthesis, all of these things that we know, I think. And then after, we want to put the puzzle together, the jigsaw puzzle together to see, did they get it? Can they move from step 1 to step 5 without any kind of distortion? Did they get it? We want to review and recap and stuff to see. And I think most times what I do personally, I ask the students to say something to get it at the end, to say, what is it you learn? Why is it so? So I think, as you said, good questioning generates very, very good discussion. I'll get it. So that's it. Just now. Next slide. Yeah.
Just press your enter or the down arrow, something, page down. I can't even remember now. Or your mouse.
You don't have to be that. Okay. Yes, I'm trying. Let me see if you're new window. Just a while. See, never try to do what you don't know.
What are you trying to do now? What do you want to do? Can you just press escape and you'll come out of the slideshow? Oh, I see. Movie time.
Okay, yes. So I have a little video. Any questions? Anybody? Okay. Something else. A point that I wanted to make was that question and discussion The main reason, as I said, is to develop the cognitive and social skills, etc. But they also said another point that we should take into consideration, that you don't really get to teach the content per se. Oh, you get to develop ideas and points and stuff, but the content that you really want to tackle, you don't really get to teach it per se. But I guess it depends on the way you go about it. You can get that in, and then when you get the evaluation part done, you can get your main ideas, or the big idea that you want to leave with, and then maybe you can go into the content, or just give them as a handout. They'll read in your own time, and then it's how you structure it. So I have a little video to recap. Not very long. If no questions, look at it. Oops. Sorry about that.
Backspace.
I'm just not in it today, sorry.
Try clicking the backspace.
I will do that. I'm just not in it today, sorry. I'll do that.
No.
No.
Press escape.
Yeah, I think it's going to work. Let's see. Okay. Blame the Miss Peterkin. She advised me.
I think you have to be in slideshow. It says resume slideshow. Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I mean, you have to read as you go along, but it says that you call on a student for an answer, and if they don't get an answer, you call on another student, then you go back to the other student to make sure that they have heard what the person said. They can now maybe use that as a prop to now go through their thought processes and say, okay, you can bail on what the other one said before, and they can now get a clue or a hint or something. And then you want to clarify, because you want everybody to come away with something and to share their views. So we can read fast. Okay then. Okay then, I think that's my 2 cents. Thanks very much for listening. Any questions, you can refer them to Ms. Peterkin.
I wanted to see
Right.
you got the video from. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jason?
No,
what
go
was
ahead.
the thing at the end where it said if you have any more questions or if you want information?
That's why I stopped, because it was giving the gentleman's name, so I should refer them to Ms. Peterkin.
I wanted to see that.
I the video. I create a video, that's okay.
All right. Well, what I will ask is for persons who made PowerPoint presentations, probably email it to the class so everyone can get access to it. So, Jason, even what you presented, you might not have it in a PowerPoint, but maybe I have something written, some document, so we can share it with everybody. So everyone gets a basic idea of what we did, you know, other than reviewing this video, this recording of the class. So that would be good. Yes, I do have a question about one of those strategies. What is dry erase lapboard? Anyone saw that one in the listing? I have no idea what that one was. But anyway, that aside, I can look that
I
up
just thought
myself.
it was a mini dry erase board because they have ones that are small, like as opposed to a big whiteboard that you have on the wall. You can just have an individual one, I'm thinking. So then they write their ideas on that.
Okay, lap boards. Okay, fine. Cool. All right, somebody's playing music? All right. So, Ava, take it away, teacher Ava. You're directing your question and answer session.
I'm done, I think.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Samuel. Yes, Eva, my question is maybe some clarification. Leading question, I know most time we use in formative assessment. Is it possible to use that in summative assessment? Is it possible?
I think you can use it in any form of assessment, but the leading questions, the way I understand, I can be wrong, is that you ask a child something in front, and is the color of that green? Is the color of the curtain green? And they'll say yes. That's just a leading. It's right in front of them. There's no thought going to it or whatever. You just ask a question, a yes or no question, a close-ended question that only have one answer. So you really want to avoid this kind of question because they're at the lower level of thinking. The child can see it. The child have eyes. Yes, the curtain is green. So you want to maybe ask another question, and to have the child thinking, because you don't really have to think to say yes or no. I think. Well, generally.
So I said that means it might be difficult to use that in summative assessment. Because
I said if you use it, you have to have a follow-up question. If you use yes or no question, you must have a follow-up. Because they said yes, no, the reason why, give me a reason why you said that, even explanation why you said that, and stuff like that. So you can use it, but you have to have another question to follow.
Okay, thank you.
I think the leading question is a little different from that, just a yes or no. I don't know if Dr. Peterkin would comment on that, but I was understanding a leading question to be, I was thinking of this example that we had in one of our classes. I think it was history or science. I don't know if everybody remembers, but like it was where the professor, it was like a physics class or something, and the professor was trying to get the students to observe something about the light, electricity or light, and he was trying to get them to give a specific answer, like say that it was heating up. But he was asking the question, and the students were giving all these other kind of answers. I don't know if everybody remembers that, but that to me was like a leading question to where he's actually trying to get a specific answer, asking a question. I don't know, it's hard because I can't remember the example very well, but it's not, it's really just a yes or no answer. It's like just trying to encourage or prompt a specific answer.
I think you're trying to elicit, he was trying to probably get the answer that he wanted the children to say.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah, that's like.
Yes, it's a kind of way the same, yes. So you just want them to say,
what you want them to say.
You want them to say the answer, yes. It's not like yes or no, yes, just confirming what he has said in a way. So without giving it any, you don't want them to have any diversion to go and say maybe no, maybe another way, maybe another branch or something, just to confirm, yes, what you said is correct. Like traditional kind of way teaching.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't too sure if you and Samuel were on the same page about what is a leading question, because I suspect Samuel has a different take on it from the way he asked his earlier question. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. But both you, yourself, and Jason, that's a leading question. That's it. You're leading them on, so you want them to go down a particular pathway. It might not be a yes or no response, but you want this and only this answer, and as a result, as Jason said, I don't know the specific vignette that he's referring to, but I can just imagine. I've seen that happen where I've posed something, it's kind of poorly phrased, I've not provided enough scaffold, I've not kind of given enough background information, and so I'm leading them and I want them to answer as Ava would say, green. I'm getting every other color under the sun but green, and I'm annoyed because hello, it's so obvious, it's green, why don't you answer green? But it's true, it's a questioning technique that we should really avoid, because one, it shuts down their thinking, because we have our preconceived ideas of what we want exactly. And when they say and make those other suggestions that we might not want to hear, we don't capitalize on them and listen to what they're saying and see how we can use what they're currently thinking. How can I use it to redirect their thoughts? We just say, no, that's not it, you're almost there. And it's as if, to me, I call it like winning the jackpot. You don't know when you win the jackpot until somebody, yes, bingo, you've got it. And it makes the students, therefore, always have this thinking that I don't know what sir wants. I want to know what sir is thinking so I can give sir exactly back what he wants. And so that's the danger of leading questions, where we know what we want them to answer and we create the question or the scenario that can only have one response, and it's still ambiguous. So we have to be careful how we phrase questions. I'm not saying obviously that there won't be questions that we ask that will have exactly only one response. It's how we phrase it. It's how we pose the question in such a way. I wish I could think of a scenario, but just like what Ava was giving. You have one? Okay.
I found it. It's from our history of science class. Basically, it just has to break down with the discussion between the teacher and the student. So I'll just read it. Okay. The teacher says, did any of you Oh, sorry. They're doing energy transformations, and they're working with an electric bell and a battery, a dynamo and a light bulb, and some other things. But anyway, so the teacher says, "Did any of you notice? Did any of you actually hold on to the bell after it had been working? What did you notice?" One student says, "Vibration." Then the teacher says, "Well, the arm vibrated, right? Sound. What else did you notice? Anything? If you held on to this bit where the wires were, did you notice anything else? Or did you notice anything there?" And another student says, "There were sparks there." And the teacher says, "Heat. Did you notice some heat?" And then another student says, "There were sparks from there." And the teacher says, "There were." And then another student says, "Sparks. I don't know about." And then kind of trails off, and the teacher says, "There were some sparks, yes, but let's just ignore the sparks a minute. We can come back to some heat. There was a little bit of heat with that one." So it kind of shows that he was trying to focus on heat. He wanted them to say heat, but they were looking at other things.
And totally ignoring their observations, and that's a danger of that we can, with these, depending on how we set up the questions, because for some worksheets in the lab, Samuel can support this one, where you do have them responding, what were your observations, and they'll record all their observations, and you should have an idea of what the possible outcomes would be. And then you kind of, if he wanted to latch onto heat, he could then draw from that observation of sparks. What those sparks suggest exist, But the idea is that leading questions, not that they can't be used, but we have to be careful, as Ava is saying, that we don't shut them down. We have to explore their responses and see how we can bring their responses to the kind of response that we're looking for, or that we want them to have. All right. So Ava, you're still conducting your question and answer session. I didn't take it over anyway.
Okay. I would just like to also highlight that I'm thinking that when you have these leading questions, it's mostly, to me as a teacher, might have to do with your level of experience. If you're a novice in the classroom, you might just, and then, or if you are in a situation where you're not teaching a subject that you're comfortable with, that you're feel is not your area of specialization. Because sometimes you go to a school and they say, "Oh, we have a vacancy. Do you know that? I'll take you to that," or they push you do English and whatever. And you're not comfortable with it so much. And another person, sometimes teachers with pride sometimes avoid them from asking the more experienced teachers a question, or to gain knowledge. Or I don't know, because if I don't know something, I can't pretend I don't know. So it might have to do with your level of competence. How do you feel? If the child don't give you that answer, it's wrong, and you yourself not broaden your knowledge or whatever. Maybe that can work, and because change as a teacher is very, very difficult. We have done it 15 years and it's worked. Why try and change it? So it's all about openness and trying to change. So I can see teachers who are not comfortable with the area or lack of experience going that route. But I think for me personally, I tell you, but I don't know. I'll get back to you or something, because I don't know everything. I learn from them, they learn from me. So it's being comfortable with what you know and what you don't know. Just acknowledge, and then you Google it.
And in fact, I noticed that in the video presentation that was presented, it said if the teacher says like good answer or correct, it shuts down the discussion. You should really keep prodding, keep prying more and more information, and send the discussion around the classroom, so to speak. And that is true. As much as we want to build their confidence and we want to say good job and give praise, that needs to be done, but don't shut down the discussion if it's a discussion. And I want to emphasize here that questioning and discussion is a strategy in and of itself. You have to think about it. It's used a lot in law schools, in law, as you can imagine, because of the very nature of the teaching. Case studies and questioning and answering Socratic questions are strategies. And I'm just saying this to say that when you go into a classroom and you say you're going to have a discussion on something, be prepared to do a discussion. If you notice, one of the ideas that came out, it says in Ava's presentation that it develops ideas, but content is not necessarily deeply addressed. And that is true because people are expressing opinions, really, if you think about it. So you have to choose the topic wisely that you would want to have a discussion on. And that's important. So if it is a deeply content driven, topic, you might not want to do a discussion. But if it's something that is more kind of like the environmental sciences, where people have opinions, varying opinions, diverse opinions on a topic, that might be good, useful to generate ideas and to have their critical thinking being fostered. I think I did one recently with the use of cloning, because we're doing genetics, and we did meiosis and mitosis and all of that. And then we had gone into this whole topic of cloning, and I did a discussion a discussion that lasted for around, I mean, it blew my mind away that the discussion went around 45 minutes. And I had no idea that it was going to just, because people were giving their opinions of why cloning was good, why it's not good, what would happen if, and they were just posing back and forth, which was really good. At the end of it, I thought, I can't really do anything more. I mean, I had a PowerPoint. We looked on, what's the name of that sheep again? Dolly the sheep, and we looked at cloning in different countries, how they were cloning horses for horse racing, and camels. It's camels, not horses. Camels for camel racing, apparently. But it was interesting how the students really got into it. At the end, I then declared, okay, so this is a very important topic, and don't be surprised, this is something that they will ask at the Caribbean level, CSEC level. Students went ballistic. Miss, and you make us waste time talking? No. It's interesting how they thought that they were wasting time. But when I listened to the discussions, they had good reasons. They were reasoning, supporting their views, and I thought they could easily express that in an exam. And they got a question on it in the exam, and similarly, they discussed just as passionately. No, they thought it was a waste of time. And how could I have them spending 45 minutes just talking and I didn't give them one stitch of notes? But it was so topical. It was something that they had some kind of opinion on, and it was enough for them to remember the discussions, what people said, what their own views. Those who never said anything, just piggyback on somebody else's thoughts. But the idea is that you really have to be careful. Don't just go in and just start having a discussion without having thought about what that topic is that you're going to have a discussion on. How can the students move away from that discussion, still developing some skills and some ideas that they can expand on further, maybe in another class. So watch out for the choice of topics. I don't know if that's making any sense to you, my 2 bits, as Ava would say. How do you feel about that? That you can't just jump up and just do a discussion in any class, any class with any topic. Okay, 15 minutes break ready, right? Oh my, I think I've lost you all. Ava? I've lost Ava too. Okay. All right. When we come back, let me go with the break now. It's 11 o'clock. When we come back, I'll try and pick up on that because there's something I want to kind of pull together from the presentation so far. And then we should have Vanessa coming with a new one on concept cartoons. So see you back here in 15 minutes.